Hey, legal drama enthusiasts, welcome back to the channel. Today we're diving deep into Suits LA, Season 1, Episode 5, appropriately titled You're on Your Own. For those who've been following our recaps, you know we're now 5 episodes into this spin-off, and things are getting increasingly complex for Ted Black and his newly formed team. Last week in Episode 4, Batman Returns, we saw a special appearance from Gabriel Macht reprising his role as Harvey Specter, which certainly got fans excited. But as many of you commented on that video, while the cameo was nice, you're more interested in how the new characters are developing. Well, I'm happy to report that Episode 5 shifts the focus back to our new legal team and delivers what might be the strongest episode of the series so far. Before we dive into the nitty-gritty, as always, this video will contain major spoilers for Episode 5. I'm going to break down everything, all the twists, turns, and jaw-dropping moments. So if you haven't watched it yet, now's your chance to pause this video and come back after you've experienced it for yourself. Still with me? Great. In this hour-long breakdown, I'll be covering everything. The continuing saga of Lester Thompson's murder case, the developing dynamics between our main characters, the fascinating flashbacks to Ted's past as a prosecutor, and even some theories about where the season is headed after this pivotal episode. What makes You're on Your Own particularly interesting is how it brings the legal proceedings more front and center than previous episodes. We're finally seeing substantial courtroom action, which was something the original Suits often avoided in favor of hallway confrontations and conference room settlements. So grab your coffee, settle in, and don't forget to hit that subscribe button and notification bell so you never miss our in-depth episode analyses. Now, let's jump into the increasingly complicated world of Ted Black's law practice and the murder case that's defining his new beginning. Episode 5 opens with Ted Black and Amanda walking into the courthouse, both looking tense. They're there to address a new challenge in Lester Thompson's murder case. The prosecution wants to call Lester's wife, Claire, to testify against him. This represents a serious threat to their defense strategy, as Claire potentially knows details that could damage Lester's credibility. In a brief but telling exchange, Amanda questions whether Ted has a plan. His response, "I always have a plan," echoes the confidence we've come to expect from him, though the worry in his eyes suggests he might be less certain than he lets on. Meanwhile, back at the office, Kevin, Rick, and Erica are working through mountains of evidence related to Lester's case. The dynamic between these three has evolved since the first episode. Kevin has taken on a mentor role to the associates, though his methods are quite different from Ted's. Where Ted is intuitive and sometimes impulsive, Kevin is methodical and detail-oriented. Their investigation leads to a concerning discovery: inconsistencies in Lester's alibi for the night of the murder. Specifically, cell phone tower data places Lester's phone near the victim's apartment at a time when he claimed to be at home. This revelation sets up the central tension of the episode. The team must decide whether to confront their client with this information and how it affects their defense strategy. The episode skillfully interweaves this present-day narrative with flashbacks to Ted's time as a prosecutor in New York. We see a younger Ted working on a RICO case against an organized crime family. These scenes introduce us to Samantha, a colleague Ted was romantically involved with, adding personal stakes to his professional work. The flashbacks reveal that Ted's relentless pursuit of the case put strain on their relationship, establishing a pattern of Ted prioritizing work over personal connections. Back in the present, Ted and Amanda appear before Judge Rosalie Martinez, a new character introduced in this episode, to argue against allowing Claire Thompson to testify. The prosecution, led by District Attorney Monica Wilson, argues that Claire's testimony is crucial to establishing Lester's state of mind before the murder. Ted counters that spousal privilege should protect their communications. In a dramatic courtroom scene, Judge Martinez rules in favor of the prosecution, allowing Claire to testify but limiting the scope of questioning to observations rather than communications. This partial victory for the prosecution increases the pressure on Ted's team to strengthen their defense. The middle section of the episode focuses on Ted and Amanda's efforts to prepare Claire for her testimony. In these scenes, we learn that Claire and Lester's marriage has been troubled for some time, adding another layer of complexity to the case. Claire reveals to Ted that she suspected Lester was having an affair, possibly with the murder victim, though she has no concrete evidence. Meanwhile, Kevin confronts Rick and Erica about their discovery, leading to a debate about legal ethics and their obligations to their client. Kevin argues they need to inform Ted immediately, while Rick suggests they investigate further before potentially damaging their case. Erica, proving her growth as a character, sides with Kevin, emphasizing that hiding evidence would compromise their integrity as lawyers. The episode reaches its first climax when Kevin finally brings the cell phone evidence to Ted. In a tense scene, Ted must decide whether to confront Lester with this information before Claire's testimony. Against Amanda's advice, Ted chooses to confront Lester directly. The confrontation between Ted and Lester is brilliantly acted, with Lester initially denying any inconsistency in his story. However, when pressed by Ted, he admits that he was near the victim's apartment that night, but insists he didn't go inside or see her. According to Lester, he drove there, intending to confront her about spreading rumors about him in the industry, but lost his nerve and left without making contact. This revelation, while concerning, doesn't necessarily prove his guilt but significantly complicates the defense strategy. In a parallel storyline, Ted encounters Stewart at the courthouse. Their confrontation about leaked transcripts from the case leads to one of the episode's most memorable moments when Stewart responds to Ted's accusation with a powerful, "What the hell did you just say to me?" A line that will resonate with fans of the original Suits, as it was a frequently used expression in that show. The episode's final act returns to the courtroom for Claire's testimony. Despite Ted and Amanda's preparation, Claire's testimony proves damaging. She reveals that Lester came home late on the night of the murder, was acting strangely, and immediately showered and changed clothes, behavior consistent with someone who might be disposing of evidence. While Ted manages to create some doubt during cross-examination by establishing Claire's bias due to marital problems, the damage is significant. The episode ends with two powerful scenes. First, Kevin confronts Ted about Lester's changed story, suggesting that their client might be guilty after all. Ted's response, that everyone deserves a defense regardless of guilt, highlights his evolution from prosecutor to defense attorney while setting up potential conflict within the team. The final scene shows Ted alone in his office, visibly shaken by the day's events. Eddie's ghost appears, asking Ted if he's sure he's doing the right thing. When Ted questions whether Lester is innocent, Eddie responds, "You already know the answer to that, brother," leaving viewers to wonder what Ted truly believes about his client's guilt or innocence. 5 episodes in, the characters of Suits LA are showing fascinating development. And You're on Your Own particularly highlights their evolving dynamics. Stephen Amell's Ted Black continues to be the complex center of the show. This episode deepens our understanding of his character through the flashbacks to his prosecutor days. Young Ted is shown to be brilliant but obsessive, willing to sacrifice personal relationships for professional victories. The parallel between his past relationship with Samantha and his current all-consuming focus on Lester's case suggests he hasn't entirely learned from his mistakes. What makes Ted compelling in this episode is his moral ambiguity. When confronted with evidence that challenges Lester's innocence, he doesn't abandon his client, but instead doubles down on his defense. This raises the question, is Ted motivated by a genuine belief in the legal system's principles, or is he simply unable to admit when he's backed the wrong horse? The final scene with Eddie's ghost suggests Ted himself isn't entirely sure of his motivations. Amanda gets substantial development in this episode, emerging as more than just Ted's legal partner. Her strategic approach to Claire's testimony shows her capabilities as a lawyer, while her willingness to challenge Ted's decisions demonstrates her independence. There's also a hint of personal chemistry between Ted and Amanda, subtly introduced through small moments, a lingering glance, a casual touch that suggests potential romantic development down the line. Kevin truly comes into his own in this episode. His discovery of the cell phone evidence and subsequent moral dilemma showcase both his investigative skills and his ethical backbone. The contrast between Kevin's methodical approach and Ted's intuitive style creates an interesting dynamic, reminiscent of the Harvey Mike relationship from the original series, but with its own distinct flavor. Kevin's confrontation with Ted in the final scene establishes him as the team's moral compass, someone willing to question Ted's decisions when necessary. Rick and Erica continue their competitive dynamic, but this episode shows growth in both characters. Rick demonstrates creative thinking in his approach to the evidence, while Erica shows increased confidence in her legal reasoning. Their debate about whether to immediately disclose the cell phone evidence reveals their different approaches to the law. Rick is more pragmatic, Erica more principled, while still showing mutual respect. We also get more insight into Lester Thompson's character in this episode. The revelation about his change story adds complexity to what could have been a one-dimensional client role. Is Lester a manipulative liar using Ted's team to escape justice, or a frightened man who made a stupid mistake and is now paying for it? The ambiguity is compelling and serves the show's exploration of moral gray areas. Claire Thompson, introduced as a significant character in this episode, provides an interesting counterpoint to the legal professionals. As Lester's wife, she has intimate knowledge of him, but also emotional reasons to either protect or harm him. Her testimony about his behavior on the night of the murder is delivered with a complexity that suggests conflicted feelings rather than simple vengeance. District Attorney Monica Wilson emerges as a formidable antagonist in this episode. Unlike Stewart, whose opposition to Ted feels personal, Monica is portrayed as a principled prosecutor doing her job. This makes her a more interesting adversary, someone who can challenge Ted intellectually and legally without descending into villainy. Judge Rosalie Martinez, newly introduced in this episode, quickly establishes herself as a no-nonsense presence in the courtroom. Her balanced ruling on Claire's testimony, allowing it but limiting its scope, suggests she'll be a fair but strict arbiter as the trial progresses. In the flashbacks, we meet Samantha, Ted's former colleague and romantic partner. Though her screen time is limited, she represents an important aspect of Ted's past, someone who saw his potential but also recognized his self-destructive tendencies. The unresolved nature of their relationship leaves open the possibility of her appearance in the present timeline, which could add compelling complications. Finally, Eddie's ghost continues to serve as Ted's conscience, appearing at moments of moral uncertainty. The final scene, where Eddie essentially asks Ted whether he believes in Lester's innocence, highlights the supernatural element's value to the story. Rather than being a gimmick, Eddie's appearances force Ted to confront truths he might otherwise avoid. This rich character development across the board is one of the episode's greatest strengths, giving viewers multiple points of connection to the story beyond the legal case itself. Now let's break down the most pivotal scenes and moments from this exceptional episode. The opening courthouse scene immediately establishes the stakes. Ted and Amanda walking up the steps, discussing strategy about Claire's testimony, sets the tone for the episode. Ted's confidence appears slightly shaken, a subtle but important character note that foreshadows his later uncertainties. The first truly powerful moment comes when Kevin, Rick, and Erica discover the cell phone evidence. The camera work here is excellent, starting with a wide shot of the three of them surrounded by documents and gradually zooming in on the cell tower data as Kevin explains its significance. Rick's reaction, "This could tank our entire case," verbalizes the gravity of their discovery, while Erica's concerned expression adds emotional weight. The flashback scenes are strategically placed throughout the episode, each revealing a bit more about Ted's relationship with Samantha and his approach to the Rico case. The most significant of these shows, Ted canceling dinner plans with Samantha to continue working on the case. Her response, "There will always be another case, Ted," resonates throughout the episode as we see present-day Ted making similar choices, suggesting he hasn't learned from his past mistakes. The courtroom scene where Judge Martinez rules on Claire's testimony is masterfully executed. The legal arguments from both Ted and DA Wilson are sharp and compelling, making the judge's split decision feel earned rather than arbitrary. The close up on Ted's face as the ruling is announced captures a mix of disappointment and determination that perfectly encapsulates his character. One of the episode's most emotionally resonant scenes comes when Ted and Amanda meet with Claire to prepare her for testimony. Claire's revelation about suspecting Lester of having an affair with the victim adds a new dimension to the case. The way Ted absorbs this information, his expression shifting from surprise to calculation, shows his ability to adapt quickly to new information, even when it potentially damages his case. The ethical debate between Kevin, Rick, and Erica about disclosing the cell phone evidence provides a fascinating exploration of legal ethics. Kevin's argument that they have an obligation to inform Ted immediately contrasts with Rick's more pragmatic approach of investigating further first. Erica's deciding vote in favor of disclosure shows her growth from earlier episodes where she might have been more willing to bend rules for advantage. Perhaps the most electrifying scene in the episode is Ted's confrontation with Lester about the cell phone evidence. The scene begins with Ted maintaining his composure, methodically laying out the inconsistencies in Lester's story. As Lester becomes defensive, Ted's questioning becomes more intense, building to the moment when Lester finally admits he was near the victim's apartment. The power dynamics shift several times during this conversation, ending with uncertainty about whether Ted still believes in Lester's innocence. The confrontation between Ted and Stewart in the courthouse hallway provides a momentary break from the main case, while reinforcing the ongoing rivalry between the former partners. Stewart's response to Ted's accusation, "What the hell did you just say to me?" is delivered with such conviction that it instantly becomes one of the episode's most memorable lines, especially for fans of the original series who recognize it as a callback. Claire's testimony scene is the episode's dramatic centerpiece. The sequence is brilliantly constructed, intercutting between Claire's damaging testimony, Ted and Amanda's reactions, and the jurors' responses. Particularly effective is the moment when Claire describes Lester's strange behavior on the night of the murder, coming home late, immediately showering, and disposing of his clothes. The prosecutor's careful questioning and Claire's reluctant but clear answers create a devastating portrait of suspicious behavior. Ted's cross-examination of Claire demonstrates his skills as a trial attorney. Rather than attacking her credibility directly, he gently establishes the difficulties in her marriage, creating an alternative explanation for her perceptions of Lester's behavior. This nuanced approach shows Ted's growth as a defense attorney while still maintaining the aggressive edge that defined him as a prosecutor. The scene between Kevin and Ted following the day's testimony represents a crucial moment in their professional relationship. Kevin's direct questioning of whether Ted believes Lester is innocent challenges Ted's approach to the case. Ted's response, that guilt or innocence isn't the point, but rather ensuring the system works properly, reveals his complex relationship with justice and sets up potential conflict within the team going forward. The episode's final scene with Ted, alone in his office, later joined by Eddie's ghost, provides a perfect emotional conclusion. When Ted asks, "Is he innocent?" and Eddie responds, "You already know the answer to that, brother." The ambiguity is perfect. Does Ted believe Lester is guilty? Is Eddie suggesting Ted's instincts are correct, whatever they may be? This open-ended conclusion leaves viewers eagerly anticipating the next episode while reflecting on the moral questions raised throughout. You're on Your Own represents a significant step forward for Suits, L.A., delivering what might be the strongest episode of the series so far. After 4 episodes of establishing the characters and setting up the Lester Thompson case, this 5th installment finally brings all elements into perfect balance. What makes this episode particularly successful is its focus on courtroom drama, something the original Suits often avoided in favor of out-of-court settlements and legal maneuvering. By centering the action around Claire's testimony, the episode creates natural tension and stakes that drive both the plot and character development. This approach feels fresh while still maintaining the show's DNA. The writing in this episode deserves special praise for its handling of moral ambiguity. No character is presented as entirely right or wrong in their approach to the case. Ted's determination to defend Lester regardless of growing evidence against him can be seen as either principled or stubborn. Kevin's insistence on confronting the problematic evidence head on is either ethical or potentially damaging to their client. This complexity elevates the show above simple legal procedurals. Stephen Amell delivers his strongest performance yet as Ted Black, particularly in the scenes where Ted must recalibrate his approach after learning about the cell phone evidence. The subtle shifts in his expression as he processes new information reveal a character who is constantly calculating while trying to maintain his confident exterior. The final scene, where Ted's confidence finally cracks when alone with Eddie's ghost, shows Amell's range beyond the controlled lawyer persona. The flashback structure, which could have felt disruptive, is integrated seamlessly into the present-day narrative. Each glimpse of Ted's past as a prosecutor directly informs our understanding of his current choices, creating thematic resonance rather than merely providing backstory. The parallel between Ted's obsession with the Racco case and his current all-consuming focus on Lester's defense suggests he's repeating patterns that damaged his personal life in the past. Perhaps the most surprising strength of this episode is its pacing. Despite juggling multiple storylines, the court case, the team's investigation, Ted's flashbacks, and the interpersonal dynamics, the episode never feels rushed or overcrowded. Each scene is given room to breathe, allowing both dramatic moments and character beats to land effectively. The episode also benefits from introducing Judge Martinez and giving more substantial screen time to D.A. Wilson, expanding the world beyond Ted's immediate team and creating a more textured legal environment. These characters represent different approaches to justice that challenge Ted's perspective without falling into antagonist stereotypes. If there's a criticism to be made, it's that some of the supporting characters, particularly Rick and Erica, still feel somewhat underdeveloped compared to Ted, Amanda, and Kevin. While they have important roles in discovering the cell phone evidence, their personal motivations and backgrounds remain relatively unexplored. Hopefully, future episodes will give them more substantial arcs of their own. The supernatural element with Eddie's ghost continues to be a bold creative choice that sets Suits, LA, apart from other legal dramas. In this episode, Eddie's appearances are used sparingly but effectively, particularly in the final scene where he essentially asks Ted to confront his true beliefs about Lester's innocence. Rather than feeling gimmicky, these moments provide unique access to Ted's internal struggles in a genre that often relies on dialogue to reveal character. Overall, You're on Your Own succeeds by bringing the legal case front and center while using it as a vehicle to explore deeper questions about justice, truth, and professional ethics. It maintains the sharp dialogue and interpersonal drama that defined the original Suits while establishing its own identity through the courtroom focus and moral complexity. If the series can maintain this quality going forward, it has the potential to step out of its predecessor's shadow and become a compelling legal drama in its own right. Episode 5 leaves us with several intriguing questions and setups that will likely drive the next installment, titled Dester. First and foremost is the question of Lester's guilt or innocence. The cell phone evidence and Claire's testimony have created substantial doubt about Lester's version of events. Will episode 6 provide more clarity about what actually happened on the night of the murder? The title Dester suggests a focus on Lester's character, perhaps diving deeper into his background or revealing new aspects of his personality that could either support or undermine his defense. The preview for episode 6 shows Ted and Kevin engaged in what appears to be a heated argument, suggesting that the moral tension established at the end of episode 5 will continue to develop. Kevin's growing concerns about Lester's truthfulness could put him at odds with Ted's commitment to the defense, potentially creating a rift within the team at a crucial moment in the case. Another thread likely to be explored is the potential romance between Ted and Amanda. Episode 5 included several subtle moments suggesting attraction between them, and the preview shows them working closely together under pressure. Will their professional partnership evolve into something more personal? And if so, how will that affect their handling of the case? The flashbacks to Ted's relationship with Samantha raise the possibility of her appearing in the present timeline. The preview includes a brief glimpse of what appears to be Ted meeting with a woman at a restaurant, though her face isn't clearly shown. Could this be Samantha arriving in Los Angeles, perhaps bringing information related to Ted's past that could impact the current case? The courtroom focus of episode 5 seems set to continue, with the preview showing Ted delivering what appears to be an opening statement. This suggests the trial is moving forward despite the setbacks, with Ted adapting his strategy to account for the damaging testimony and evidence that emerged in episode 5. Judge Martinez and D.A. Wilson, both of whom made strong impressions in episode 5, appear prominently in the preview, indicating they'll continue to be important figures in the legal proceedings. The adversarial dynamic between Ted and Wilson appears to intensify, with a brief clip showing them in a heated exchange outside the courtroom. Rick and Erica's competitive dynamic may also evolve in episode 6. The preview shows them working together on research, suggesting that despite their differences in episode 5, they're finding ways to collaborate effectively. Their development as lawyers under the mentorship of both Ted and Kevin remains an important subplot. The supernatural element with Eddie's ghost will likely continue to provide insight into Ted's conscience. The ambiguous ending of episode 5, with Eddie suggesting Ted already knows the truth about Lester, creates anticipation for how Ted will reconcile his professional obligations with his personal intuitions. Finally, there's a brief glimpse in the preview of what appears to be Stewart meeting with Claire Thompson, raising questions about whether Stewart is actively working to undermine Ted's case. This potential alliance between Ted's former partner and Lester's wife could create significant complications for the defense. All these threads coming together promise an episode that will further develop the unique identity of Suits L.A., while continuing to explore the moral and legal complexities established in You're on Your Own. You're on Your Own marks a significant turning point for Suits L.A., elevating the series from a promising spin-off to a compelling legal drama in its own right. By focusing on courtroom proceedings while maintaining the character-driven approach that made the original Suits successful, the episode achieves a perfect balance of legal intrigue and personal drama. The performances across the board, particularly from Stephen Amell as Ted, bring depth to what could have been standard legal show archetypes. Ted's struggle with his belief in Lester's innocence, Amanda's strategic approach to difficult testimony, and Kevin's ethical dilemma all feel authentic and engaging. What distinguishes this episode from previous installments is its willingness to embrace moral complexity. No character is presented as having all the answers, and the legal and ethical questions raised don't have simple solutions. Should Ted continue defending Lester despite growing evidence against him? Is Kevin right to question their client's veracity? These ambiguities create rich, dramatic territory that elevates the show above procedural formulas. The flashback structure works particularly well in this episode, with each glimpse of Ted's prosecutor past informing our understanding of his present choices. The parallel between his obsessive approach to the Ryko case and his current all-consuming focus on Lester's defense suggests he's repeating patterns that damaged his personal life, a thematic depth that adds layers to what could have been a straightforward legal narrative. The supernatural element with Eddie's ghost, which might have seemed gimmicky in concept, continues to provide unique insight into Ted's internal struggles. Rather than feeling out of place in a legal drama, these moments have become essential to understanding our protagonist's complicated relationship with truth and justice. The episode's cliffhanger ending, with the ambiguous exchange between Ted and Eddie about Lester's guilt or innocence, perfectly sets up continued moral exploration in future episodes. Will Ted maintain his defense of Lester regardless of personal doubts? How will the team dynamics evolve as the case becomes more complicated? These questions leave viewers eager for the next installment. You're on Your Own demonstrates that Suits LA has found its voice, distinct from but respectful of its predecessor. By embracing courtroom drama more directly than the original series typically did, while maintaining the sharp dialogue and complex characters that define Suits, the spin-off is carving out its own identity in the legal drama landscape. What did you think of the episode? Are you Team Ted or Team Kevin when it comes to their different approaches to Lester's case? Do you believe Lester is innocent, or do you think Ted is defending a guilty man? And what's your take on the growing evidence against Lester, convincing or circumstantial? Let me know in the comments below. If you enjoyed this breakdown, please hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and share with your fellow legal drama enthusiasts. I'll be back next week with a full breakdown of Episode 6, Dester, so make sure you've got those notifications turned on. Until next time, this is Amelia 2.00, making sense of the legal chaos one episode at a time.